Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Spiritually Fly Sunday, the Word. And my name is Faith Hunter, and welcome back. I am going to jump right in. I see a few people coming on. So the title for today, or the word for today, is SoulPrints. And SoulPrints is a concept that I talk about immediately in the beginning of my book. Because as you know, these Spiritually Fly Sunday sessions, the word, they are all based on my book. The word SoulPrints. So what does that mean? What does that feel like? What does that look like? You're probably thinking to yourself, I've never even heard the use of that word or that concept, because I just basically created it. Because I felt like there needed to be another explanation and another process of understanding, or aspect of understanding how we engage in yoga practices or yogic practices. Because I find that in this day and age, and how the practices, healing practices, spiritually practices, have been so decolonized, right? They've been colonized, so they need to be decolonized. They have taken on such an interesting form that has actually pulled them away from some of original ancient teachings. The practice of yoga, it has all, I know I started practicing yoga in the 90s, and when I entered the practice, there was still this element of spirituality. There's still this element of reverence. There is still this element of devotion. But as I became a teacher in 2003, and I started to teach, and I started to observe more and more as yoga, meditation became popular, it was less about the spirituality or tapping into yourself or evolving into a much better person. What these practices started to turn into were these practices of, I want to get fit, I want to look good, I want to get more money. Okay, so if I show up and do all of these things, I'm going to bypass all of my pain, all of my shame, all of my discomfort, all of the stuff that I need to internally work on, which spiritual practices help you do, dig a little bit deeper. And so what I committed myself to as a yoga teacher is that I would not lose that element of divine connection, that I would not lose that element of spiritual evolution, meaning we have to maintain an alignment to spirit in order to evolve to our best selves, in order to work through the pain, work through the shame, work through the discomfort. So I don't want to preach on that too much, and I don't want to sit on that soapbox, but what I do want to share is why I phrase the word SoulPrints, or why I created the word SoulPrints in my book, and why it is a foundation for everything that I do in my teachings. So there's a concept called samskaras, and samskaras are these imprints, these impressions that are on our mind. Now, we are born with a certain number of samskaras. As we know, if you are really deep into spiritual teaching, you know that we are born with our parents, our ancestors, thoughts, feelings, experiences, and those are imprinted into our DNA. So then, poof, we come out as these little bitty beings, and then we're exposed to the world. And what happens is that we are layered with all of our ancestors, our elders' impressions. Then we are compounded with another layer. Now, the beautiful part is that the samskaras, the impressions, are not just bad, right? Samskaras can be really good. They can be good or bad. So first, let me read a little something, and then I'll dive into what SoulPrints are. So I'm actually reading from the introduction of my book. I'm reading on page 7. From birth, our every action, experience, and intent is imprinted on our minds as well as our hearts. As humans, we consciously and subconsciously absorb the impressions. So those samskaras that I was talking about, healthy or unhealthy. Over time, these impressions manifest into our individual tendencies and our habitual patterns. Basically, as we age, right, as we go from infancy to adulthood, the impressions are sitting, the habits are being developed. So I'll give a very simple example. If you were born into a family that ate meat, I'm throwing that out there, that ate meat, and because I have all like my thoughts around meat eating. So if you're born into a family, no judgment though, if you're born into a family that ate meat, that's an impression. That's something that you know, that's a pattern. But then you start to move out in the world and learn, you know what, maybe this isn't something that I want to do. This isn't the healthy choice for me. And then you make a conscious effort to stop eating meat. You do more than just make this conscious effort, meaning in your mind, you actually put it into action. But then it takes a little effort in order to develop a new behavior and a new pattern. So that was actually, I gave that example because that was for me. I was born into a family that did eat meat. And then at the age of 14, I made a decision to stop. And so I had to create a new impression. I had to create a new pattern for myself in order to live more fully, more authentically as me. So again, the patterns can come in the form of very tangible aspects that I just mentioned around the meat, but they can also be around conversation or the way we think or the decisions that we make. So hold your questions to the end. So don't leave because I am going to answer questions because this is a very interesting topic. It's one of my favorites, and that's why it's the foundation of my book, or one of the foundations of my book. Over time, I'm going to read this again. Over time, these impressions manifest into our individual tendencies and our habitual patterns. Moments in time, consciously and subconsciously, dictate our actions, and those actions, meaning those choices, the decisions, start to merge into our relationships and rest deep within our essence. So as we take on these samskaras, right, as we take on these impressions, as they sit deep within us, in our mind, in our hearts, in our physical being, they start to show up in our choices, our decisions. They start to show up in conversations. They start to show up in literally every aspect of our lives. Like, it is impossible. That's why these practices, right, healing practices, mindful practices are so important, because they enable us to reprogram, to change our DNA makeup, to help us purify any unhealthy samskaras and lay down, I like that, to lay down some new impressions. So that gets to the SoulPrints. Throughout my book, you know what? I'm going to give before I go to this next sentence, I'm going to give another example of an impression, which I actually explain in my book. For example, I carry the unhealthy impression, the unhealthy samskara of having a supported family, while at the same time, I carried the healthy impression of having a supported family, while at the same time, I also held the unhealthy impression of the shame around both of my brothers being HIV positive. I'll read that again. For example, I carried the healthy impression of having a supportive family, while at the same time, I also held the unhealthy impression of the shame around both of my brothers being HIV positive. Because my brothers were diagnosed, if some of you don't know, both of my brothers were diagnosed in the 80s, when having an HIV diagnosis was a death sentence and carried a great deal of stigma. So as a teenager, or preteen and teenager, I carried that unhealthy impression. All right, so now let's jump on to the next. Throughout the book, I will share a variety of methods, techniques, and approaches to purifying the mind, recharging the soul, and letting go of unhealthy impressions and making room for new healthy ones. As you move through, meaning move through the book, I will encourage you to explore your current impressions. So really, throughout the book, I'm constantly encouraging you to identify, uncover what impressions you are holding on to, meaning both the healthy as well as the unhealthy ones. I will also invite you to create your own new samskaras through SoulPrints. There we go. So in my book, what I do is invite you through the teachings, through the journaling, through the meditations, through the breath work, through the yoga asana practice, through the mudras, right? Through all of the tools, even just the simple act of contemplation. Those are the SoulPrints. Now, the SoulPrints are daily action steps and personal commitments that support your path to personal evolution. SoulPrints are daily acts and actions. SoulPrints are those things you have to do every single day. So coming back to the first example that I shared around eating meat. So as a teenager, what I had to do, living in a family that were meat eaters, I had to make a serious conscious effort. Fortunately, my mom was supportive, right? That was another healthy impression. So that she was supportive of my personal choice. So she aided me in finding foods that were really healthy as a vegetarian to ensure that I actually received my nourishment that I needed. But that was something I had to do every single day, right? Even going to school, like taking my lunch and sometimes not eating the most healthy things, but it was better than for me at that moment in time of not eating meat. And then I'll just go back to the second example that I shared so you kind of get an idea, is that when my brothers were diagnosed, I did not share their diagnosis until I was in college. So I didn't make it public, meaning with my friends and people that I was in school with, that my brothers were HIV positive years later. But once I did, it became extremely freeing. I became really active. So here comes another action step. I became really active in the HIV/AIDS nonprofit arena, and I actually worked in the HIV/AIDS arena for probably about a good 8 to 10 years from the time I was in college, grad school. I worked for the health department in Louisiana in grad school, and then when I came to DC, I worked for the Centers for Disease Control and also the National Monitoring AIDS Council. So those were action steps of being free, right? Of breaking free from that shame and stigma, and that was a new healthy impression. Okay. So what I want to do is share a little bit more about SoulPrints, because these are daily actions, and talk a little bit about the soul and why I named them SoulPrints. So again, I'm reading from my book. I'm on page 8 now. SoulPrints and how to use the book, because I really want you guys to grab this because there's so much amazing content in here. SoulPrints, how to use the book. The soul is described by many religions and cultures as the embodiment of a spirit that is believed to give us life and that lives forever. It is the spiritual force within that provides us with our internal moral values, our emotional nature, and our deep-rooted ability to feel kindness. The soul is our divine self. Each chapter of this book taps into the magnificence of the soul and uses one of the sutras to amplify it. So basically, I have these sutras, the 7 sutras, and those are kind of the foundation for each chapter. And then within each chapter, I have daily work that you can do, meaning the daily SoulPrints that you can put into play into your life in order to magnify, uplift, and amplify. As you create new SoulPrints, as you create new impressions, as you create new samskaras, you will cultivate your own sacred steps to designing a spiritually fly life. Yeah. So in my book, I talk about a variety of SoulPrints and a variety of action steps and a variety of tools. Within those soul prints and daily actions, I layer in a variety of things. And one of the major pieces, if you've ever taken one of my in-person classes or even like an online practice, you probably will notice that I have these 3 elements that almost always show up. Like, they're going to show up in some shape or form. They may not be lined up in the same order every time, but these 3 elements are going to show up. I call those my 3 M's. My 3 M's are mantras, mudra, and boom, 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 meditation. So my 3 M's, mantras, mudras, and meditations. And this is what happens. Spiritually fly 3 M's, mantra, mudra, and meditation. Mudra, are dynamic and mystical words formulated to transform energy across time and space. The mantra, the sound current. So our words, even in English, right, are mantras. An affirmation is a mantra. Selecting one word is a mantra. So even if you wake up in the morning and you want to set the tone for your day, so you're making a choice to create a new impression, and you want to set the tone of your day, and you say, okay, my word for today is worthy. That's a mantra. That's your mantra for the day. So creating soul prints, shifting and changing your energy, using an element of this spiritual practice to change your life is as simple as that. Making a conscious effort, and that conscious action and step will impact your subconscious, and that will lay the foundation for a brand new samskara. Taking action every single day. Doesn't have to be a 20-minute meditation to create change, but it does have to be a consistent and conscious action that is intentional. Mudras, mantras, and meditations. I'm going to talk about that and post things throughout the week about mudras, mantras, and meditations. I can dive into this for like months, but I'm going to share a couple of little tips throughout the week, and hopefully you guys will enjoy them. So there were a couple of questions. If you do have questions, please post them. I'm going to actually drift back down. I saw one early on and I don't want to miss it. Dun, 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 dun. So again, guys, I wanted to just share this because I've talked about my book quite a bit over the past, I think, 6 or 7 weeks. I've been coming on and jumping on and doing these Sunday sessions, but I haven't really explained a lot about how to use the book and how you can use it to work for you, and how you can use it to create what I like to call create your own spiritually fly life. And one of the ways, the primary way that I use in classes, that I use for myself, is actually thinking about what my current impressions are, what my current samskaras are, and creating new soul prints, new ways of doing things in order to purify, release, let go, and learn, and also how to lay down something new in order to cultivate a more steady, a more balanced, a more renewed way of existing and being, because we're always evolving. So the question is, when does the observer take action on what isn't wanted? Wow, that's a serious question. When does the observer take action on what isn't wanted? So if you were in this state of meditation and you were observing, right, you are deciding that this is something that you don't want in your life. That's actually step 1, acknowledging that that's something you don't want. The hard part is the taking action and making a conscious effort to take action. And that's the soul print piece. That's actually taking those simple daily steps. It's not just enough to recognize and identify what the issue is or what the unwanted aspect is within you. But the real deal is actually taking the action. Oh my goodness, it's like mosquitoes love me. Usually it's like bees that are chasing me because I have essential oils on, but today I think it's a mosquito. Okay. All right. Sorry about that, guys. It was like tickling me. La la la. Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna see if there are any other questions. And other than that, I really don't have any major thoughts or any additional notes for tonight. I just wanted to share, if you have my book, how to use my book. If you don't have my book, these are the elements and pieces in my book. And to really identify that we are all born with a set of impressions that are brought through us from our ancestors, from our family. But it is up to us to create the change. And here's the other interesting piece that I want to share, is that when we start to shift and change our energy, our DNA, the choices that we are making, you will notice that everyone around you will feel that vibration. It's a ripple effect. They may not change, but when you do it with intention and consciousness, they will cultivate a deep level of respect for you and give you your space to do that. And if they don't, then you create a boundary so that you can continue to do the deep, hard inner work. There is another question. In your experience, what defines intuition to you? My intuition, or the way that I define intuition, is that inner knowing. It's those pings and messages that we all have the ability to receive. That when you are in those moments of silence and stillness and the aha moment shows up, or sometimes you're in the middle and in the zone, like if you're on the treadmill, or I'm in my middle of my yoga practice and that aha moment comes up and it's like that ping where it says, yes, you need to do this, or no, you don't. That's your divine intuition. The beautiful part about it is that the breath work, the meditation, giving yourself time, like even if your meditation isn't sitting, right? Maybe your meditation is a movie meditation, or your meditation is going out in nature and walking. When you give yourself that moment to experience these aspects of stillness, inner stillness, then you are actually refining your intuition. It's almost like you are nurturing and feeding your intuition, so that when something uncomfortable happens, or when something amazing happens, and it's like, do I go left or do I right? Do I go right? Do I take the green pill or do I take the red pill? And then boom, you have that foundation, and you know, just by the inner work that you've already done, meaning the stillness that you've cultivated for yourself last week, the day before. And that's how you refine your intuition. So it's just your intuition is your inner knowing. Yeah. Let's see, are there any other questions? Oh yes, there is another question, or another statement. I love the breath. What can you say about the breath and meditation? So for me, and the way that I teach breath work, there are so many different tools and techniques, but I always find that breathing, depending on the type of breath technique, it will either calm and soothe your nervous system. It will help to balance out your nervous system. Or sometimes you need a breath work to help light a fire in those places that are uncomfortable, so that you can create a little more clarity in the mind. And so the way that I enjoy, or I prefer to use breath work, and I prefer to teach breath work, is I actually do it before I move into meditation, because it does those things: calms, soothes, purifies, cleanses, and then the breath helps to create space and openness, and clears out some of the mental chatter and clutter, so that when you find that moment of meditation, it's so much easier to be still and to give your mind and your heart time to listen. Yeah, thank you for that question. So yeah, there are a couple more people popping on today. I'll just say the thing that I wanted to share today was a little opening around my book, meaning how to use my book, Spiritually Fly, Wisdom, Meditations, and Yoga to Elevate Your Soul. I was reading from the introduction that talked about a concept that I call, and what I've kind of coined as SoulPrints. And SoulPrints are those spiritual action steps, those things that you need to do that are part of your personal practice in order to become a better person, the best version of yourself. Sometimes these soul prints, right, when you put them into play and really start to work on them truly every single day, it's not about finding yourself. It's about returning to yourself. So that's probably one of the most beautiful and greatest aspects of engaging into and crafting your own daily practice, is that you return to who you are. You return to that spark of infancy that you were born with, that wasn't layered with the muck of the unhealthy impressions, but instead filled with light, filled with curiosity, filled with bliss, filled with strength, filled with confidence. Because that's kind of what happens as we move from that infancy through childhood into adulthood. The negative samskaras, the suppression, they push us down and they dim our light. And so this practice brings us, meaning our daily practices of intention and mindfulness, bring us back to our light. So yeah, that's our Sunday, Spiritually Fly Sunday, the word. And the word for today is the word SoulPrints. Before we jump off, let's do a quick little thing, since there was a major question about intuition, there was a major question about breath work and meditation, and I brought up the three things, or three of the aspects that are essential and key for the way that I teach and share the 3 M's: mudra, mantra, and meditation. So why not use those three to close things out tonight? So find yourself a comfortable seat, roll your shoulders back and down. We're going to jump into a little breath work first, and the breath work that we will use will be left nostril breathing. So I want you to take your right hand to close off your right nostril, and then you're just simply going to breathe through your left nostril. Yeah. And as you close the eyes, you're going to gaze right between your brow at your first eye, right? That eye that you were born with when you were in your mother's womb. So nice and slow, long, deep breaths through your left nostril. Slow and easy breaths. Relax the shoulders, stay with it. So I'm going to do this for a couple of more seconds, just to calm and soothe the nervous system and bring us into the present moment. And a few more seconds here. Breathing in, breathing out. And then simply allow your right hand to fall to your legs. And so the mantra that you will select, we'll come back to the example that I shared. So I'd like for you to select one word that you would like to carry into the rest of your day. And not just the rest of your day, the rest of your week. What is that one single word? What is going to be your mantra? Again, your eyes are still closed, and allow that word to show up not only in your mind, but I want you to feel that word, your mantra, in your heart. like for you to bring your palms together. Right? So in Anjali Mudra, so this is our mudra. And then I want you to take your thumbs and rest your thumbs right over your first eye. And relax your shoulders. So you have your mudra, you have your mantra, and I'd like for you to simply meditate on that. Meditate on your mantra and be. Nothing else, nothing more. Just be present with the feeling of your mantra, your word for the week. Sealing it in to your place of divine intuition. Feeling the gentle pressure on your first eye as you honor your divine wisdom. As you breathe in and breathe out, feel your mantra, your word penetrate all of your being, your physical, your emotional body, your spiritual body. Now take a deep breath in. Exhale. Release your hands. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining me this Sunday evening for a little Spiritually Fly Sunday, the Word. Again, my name is Faith Hunter. Each Spiritually Fly Sunday, we have a new word that comes from my book, Spiritually Fly. And today's word was SoulPrints. Thank you so much. Feel free to watch this again. Feel free to just jump right over into our ending component and maybe remind yourself of your word for the week. That can actually just be your soul print for the week. It's just like keep doing that over and over. Do a little left nostril breathing, do your word, and do a quick little meditation. Wow. With your prayer hands, your Anjali Mudra right at your first eye. That's easy. I like that. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you. Much love and blessings. And definitely as you move through your week, feel free to share any thoughts, comments on my page. Feel free to share this video with your friends and family. And of course, stay spiritually fly. Ciao, everybody. Have a great week.